This is 100 Days of Making Comics Day 55, I think. And I was asked a question the other day by Meepolis, who has a channel called Literally Graphic, and I thought I'd answer that question by showing you some of my old stuff, because the question was, who are your influences? And it got me thinking on like influences on my art, because when I think of what has influenced the look of my art now or in the past, it's very different. I'd give a very different answer than who I'm a great admirer of, if that makes sense. Also, Nimona, great recommendation. I'm reading it on my iPhone. Not such a great idea, but I thought I'd give it a go. Kindle on the iPhone, big screen. The comic still stands, but the reading experience, it's okay. That's my mini review of reading comics on my iPhone for now. It's better than nothing. Death metal cover I made for a band from my hometown. These are some of my old comic book characters that I made in the 90s, long time ago, when I was a kid. And what can I say about this one? What frustrated me at the time was I hated my sense of coloring. I couldn't color for shit, and yeah, some of these are still cool. So these are all like comic book characters I designed a long time ago. So who are my influences? I think it's a lot of the Image guys at some point. But when I got into comics, I was very young. I must have been like I was very young. But when I got into superhero comics, that's kind of when the end was in sight. So some influences. The Image guys. This book. I picked this up mainly for Travis Charest, who I was a huge fan of at the time. But this is very typical 90s Image stuff, and he's grown quite a lot as an artist. I don't know what he does these days, but at the time, like his Jim Lee-esque style, that kind of went into his own direction, and like the way he would put stuff on the page, I just loved it. I was a sucker for this kind of stuff. I was a big fan of this kind of art. I still see the influences, but when it comes to like real like impact on my art, I think I'd have to go with Erik Larsen. Like I always wanted to draw like this, but I couldn't. I just couldn't draw faces. But I would have to say Erik Larsen, like there was something about his style that just, like the way he drew hands and bodies and like everything, it was just fast and it was cool and it was fun. And I think that had a much bigger impact on the way I sketch than anything else. Even though this was always the kind of stuff that when I was, when I was growing up, like this is what I aspired to. Yes. Some friends. This is when I was serious at trying to get better at drawing faces. Hands. Arthur Adams. His storytelling, of which he doesn't do enough, is super fun and very cool. It has a very stylized yet very detailed look, and his faces do look a bit samey. That's just his style, I guess. Now more so than ever. But I just love this stuff on X-Men back in the day. What he taught me, because nowadays he's much more stylized than ever before, and what I've picked up from following him on Facebook for some time, is that he just nails lines. He just nails it, and like he's got this thing with poses and everything. Like it's just so cool. And trying to emulate his art for a little bit, I just realized that less is more than anything, and that I cover up a lot with artistic license, So when I was very young, it wasn't that I didn't notice decent art, but it certainly wasn't a well, look at Spawn. Art was really just a vehicle to tell the story for the characters, and so I grew up on a lot of that's another Spawn one from a long time ago, fan art. I grew up on a lot of X-Men and Marvel and John Byrne, and I loved all that stuff. But it wasn't until comic book designs from the 90s based on ideas of a friend of mine from Chicago. It wasn't until Mark Silvestri did an issue of the Spider-Man, that all of a sudden I had my first moment of, who drew this? Because, and his art back then wasn't like the Mark Silvestri we know today, but it was just, there was something cool about his lines, and I very vividly remember that moment of like going like, something about this art, and looking up the artist for the first time. I think he also falls in the camp of I wish I could draw like that, but I can't. Big push forward. This is the comic book that actually really made me think like, I want to make my own comic book. Like I want to see that dream become a reality. This is from an artist I met at a comic book convention, not last year, 2014, and I bought this on the spot because of his layouts and color. Like, I guess there was a lot of dark comics around me, and this one just stood out. It's a really fun story about someone with a a magical musical interface device, and there's lots of battles. It's all very, very bright and colorful. Very cool. It's a fun tale. It is 7 String by Nick Angel. A hometown. It's where I grew up. This is all to practice. Drawing people in the park. Superhero that really got me excited because it was really fun, and the art just, having been out of comic books for so long, I really feel like the storytelling and the characters and the personalities that are just like, I can just, these are like people all around me, I feel. It's just awesome. This comic book is amazing. Oh, spoiler. And the use of color, like there's so much in this artwork that kind of made me go like, wow, like they've really taken coloring comics to a whole nother level. And it's a great story, fantastic art. Definitely an influence on what I'd like to do. Drew a little bit over here, cleaned up the text balloons. I'm thinking of dropping this whole line here, the one about backup. It's getting there. So I can't believe this took an hour. I hope that answers the question, unless you have to get more specific. Making this video kind of made me think a little bit more. Like from the point of view of back then, there are different artists that had a bigger impact on how I actually drew, and then this is what I aspire to. And I kind of realized that I am quite capable of drawing a lot more like what I aspire to now. And it's still not quite that good, but like I think it's getting there. Like I'm quite happy with how things are looking, and I think if I push it, I could get it to be that tight. So let's find out. In the meantime, I have a little tease for the next video. Found it. I found a superhero design that is kind of the origin of the story I'm currently making in my 100 days of making comics. So I guess it's time I show you guys. Thank you, Meeplus, for asking the question. Sorry I took so long to answer, but stuff happens. So yes, I'll post a link to your channel below. Hope you guys check out our channel. There's loads of very good reviews. You've definitely opened my eyes a little bit more to what's out there and some new perspectives, and I really enjoy them. So we'll see you guys next time on day 57. Coming soon.